Captain Marcus Rivera stood on the observation deck of the orbital station New Geneva, watching the strange blue lights dance across the hull of the Valoran refugee ship. The lights moved like water, flowing in patterns that hurt his eyes if he stared too long. He had seen many alien ships in his 20 years of service, but nothing quite like this. "They're beautiful," said Dr. Sarah-chan, joining him at the viewport. She carried a datapad filled with technical readouts that made no sense to anyone except the science teams. "Their ship doesn't use metal like ours. It's grown from some kind of living crystal." Marcus nodded, though he didn't pretend to understand. 3 months ago, nobody on Earth had ever heard of the Valorans. Then their ships had appeared at the edge of human space, broadcasting a simple message in broken English. "We seek shelter. Our home dies, we mean no harm." The Galactic Council had been arguing about what to do with them ever since. The Zephyrians wanted them turned away. The Nexus Collective suggested studying them like lab specimens. A dozen other species had their own opinions, each more complicated than the last. Humanity had done something different. They had said yes. "The first group arrives tomorrow," Sarah continued, scrolling through her data. 50 families, about 200 individuals total. They'll be housed in the Southern District until we can build proper accommodations. Marcus watched as smaller craft detached from the main ship, carrying the advanced scouts who would prepare for their people's arrival. The Valorans themselves were strange to look at. They stood roughly human height but seemed to be made of the same crystal as their ships. Light passed through their bodies in shifting colors, and they moved with a grace that made human dancers. "Look clumsy. What do we know about them?" Marcus asked. Sarah pulled up a file on her pad. "They come from the Andromeda Spiral. Their entire galaxy is dying, something to do with their stars burning out faster than they should. They've been traveling for generations, looking for a new home. And they chose us? Not exactly. They sent ships in all directions. We're just the first species that didn't try to shoot them or sell them into slavery." Marcus frowned at that. The galaxy could be a harsh place, especially for refugees with no military power to protect themselves. The Valorans had advanced technology, but they seemed to know nothing about warfare. Their ships carried no weapons that human sensors could detect. "The Council thinks we're being foolish," Sarah said quietly. Ambassador Thylex called it typical human sentimentality yesterday. The Zephyrian ambassador was not known for his kindness. His people believed that strength was the only virtue that mattered in the universe. They had built an empire by conquering weaker species and taking what they wanted. The idea of helping refugees without demanding payment seemed insane to them. "Let them think what they want," Marcus said. "We've made our choice." The truth was, Earth's decision to help the Valorans had surprised even their own politicians. The vote in the Human Colonial Assembly had been closer than expected. Many representatives worried about the cost of housing and feeding millions of refugees. Others feared that helping the Valorans might anger more powerful alien species, but something about the Valoran message had touched the human heart. Maybe it was the simple way they had asked for help. Maybe it was the fact that they had offered to share their knowledge in return for shelter. Or maybe it was just that humans remembered what it felt like to be alone in a hostile universe. Earth had been the newest member of the Galactic Council, accepted only 50 years ago after proving they could build faster-than-light ships. Now, most alien species saw humans as barely civilized barbarians who had gotten lucky. Helping the Valorans might not gain humanity any respect, but it felt like the right thing to do. The first refugee ship docked at New Geneva's main port the next morning. Marcus and Sarah were part of the welcoming committee, along with officials from Earth's government and translators who had been working around the clock to learn the Valoran language. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and the first Valoran stepped through. She was tall and graceful, her crystal body glowing with soft blue light. When she spoke, her voice sounded like musical notes played on glass instruments. The translator's computer worked for a few seconds, then displayed her words on a screen. "I am Liren of the Fourth Resonance. I speak for those who seek new homes." Among the stars, we thank the humans for their kindness. Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, Earth's chief diplomat, stepped forward with a welcoming smile. I am Elizabeth Hayes. On behalf of humanity, we welcome you to our space. We hope you will find peace here. Liren's body flashed with brighter colors, which the computer translated as pleasure and gratitude. We bring gifts, she said. Knowledge. Of the deep sciences, of energy that flows between dimensions, of ways to shape matter with thought and intention. We share freely with those who show us kindness. Marcus exchanged glances with Sarah. The Valorans were offering to share their advanced technology with humanity. Such knowledge could advance human civilization by centuries, but as he watched more Valorans emerge from their ship, Marcus realized something important. They weren't trying to buy safety with their technology. They were offering it as friends would, sharing what they had because they wanted to help their new neighbors. Over the following weeks, the first Valoran settlement took shape in the southern district of New Geneva. Human engineers worked alongside Valoran builders, learning new techniques for growing structures from crystal matrices that were stronger than steel but beautiful as jewels. The differences between the two species became clear quickly. Humans were loud, emotional, and direct. They solved problems by hitting them with hammers or throwing more resources at them until something worked. Valorans were quiet, thoughtful, and precise. They approached every task like a work of art, seeking elegant solutions that served multiple purposes, yet somehow they worked well together. Dr. James Park was one of the first humans to learn Valoran energy manipulation techniques. He spent hours each day with a Valoran named Kethril, practicing the mental exercises needed to sense quantum fields. Your people think with much force, Kethril told him during one session. The Valoran's body glowed with patient green light as he tried to explain concepts that had no human words. You push against the universe and make it move. We listen to the universe and move with it. Which way works better? James asked. Both ways work. Together they might work better than either alone. That became the pattern. Human determination combined with Valoran wisdom. Human engineering merged with Valoran science. Human passion guided by Valoran patience. The results amazed both species. Joint research teams began producing innovations that neither group could have achieved alone. New forms of faster-than-light travel that didn't require the massive energy expenditures of human jump drives. Medical techniques that could heal injuries by convincing cells to remember their healthy state. Manufacturing processes that could create any material by rearranging atoms. Other alien species watched these developments with growing concern. The Zephyrian Empire had dominated the galaxy for thousands of years by maintaining technological superiority over younger races. The Nexus Collective controlled interstellar trade through their monopoly on advanced computing systems. Both groups saw the human-Valoran partnership as a threat to their power. They're advancing too quickly, Ambassador Thylex complained during a council session. Humans lack the wisdom to use such power responsibly, and the Valorans are naive fools who trust too easily. But humanity and the Valorans paid little attention to such complaints. They were too busy building something new together. Human colonies throughout the solar system began welcoming Valoran families. Mars got its first Valoran district, where crystal buildings grew alongside human domes. The asteroid mining stations found that Valoran energy manipulation could extract resources more efficiently than human machines. Even Earth itself saw changes as Valoran gardens began growing in the spaces between human cities. Children of both species grew up together, learning each other's languages and customs. Human kids learned to sense energy fields and shape light with their minds. Valoran children discovered human concepts like competitive sports and practical jokes. Sarah Chun found herself thinking about this as she toured the newest joint research facility on Europa. 5 years had passed since the first Valorans arrived, and the partnership had grown beyond anything the early planners had imagined. Millions of Valorans now lived in human space, while human scholars studied in Valoran crystal universities. We've created something special here, said Viren, her Valoran research partner. They were working together on a project to improve Faster-than-light communication, combining human engineering with Valoran quantum science. The other species don't understand it, Sarah replied. They keep asking what we're getting out of the deal, like friendship has to be profitable. Varen's body shifted to warm gold, indicating amusement. Perhaps they fear what we might become together. Sarah considered that. Separately, humans and Valorans were impressive but not threatening to the galactic order. Humans had determination and adaptability, but lacked advanced technology. Valorans had incredible science, but no experience with conflict or competition. Together they were something new. A civilization that combined the best qualities of both species while minimizing their weaknesses. They shared resources freely, protected each other fiercely, and advanced their knowledge at a pace that amazed even themselves. By the 10th anniversary of First Contact, the Human-Valoran Alliance had become one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. Not through conquest or intimidation, but through cooperation and mutual support. Their joint colonies were among the most prosperous in known space. Their technology was beginning to surpass even that of the elder races. And most importantly, they had become true friends. Not allies of convenience or partners seeking mutual benefit, but people who genuinely cared about each other's welfare. Standing in the main plaza of New Geneva, watching human and Valoran children play together under the light of alien stars, Sarah felt a deep satisfaction. They had taken a chance on strangers from a dying galaxy, and those strangers had become family. She had no way of knowing that this golden age was about to end. That forces were already moving against them, planning to tear apart everything they had built together. That the very success of their partnership had marked them for destruction. In the shadows of the galaxy, those who feared change were preparing to teach humanity a lesson about the price of compassion. They would learn too late that they had gravely underestimated what humans were capable of when their family was threatened. But for now, in this moment of peace and prosperity, Sarah simply watched the children play and smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, new wonders to explore together. Tomorrow would also bring unimaginable loss. But that knowledge still lay hidden in the darkness between the stars. The Festival of Convergence was supposed to be the greatest celebration in galactic history. Kepler Station, floating in neutral space between 3 star systems, had been transformed into a massive party venue. Colorful banners hung from every corridor, displaying symbols from dozens of different species. The air hummed with excitement, and the sound of 100 different languages. Dr. Sarah Chun walked through the main plaza, amazed at how much the station had grown. What started as a simple research outpost had become a city in space, home to over 20,000 beings. Half were human, half were Valoran, all working together on projects that would change the galaxy forever. The quantum tunnel tests are ready for tomorrow, said Viren, her crystal body glowing with happy blue light. 50 years of work, and we might finally crack instant travel between galaxies. Sarah smiled at her research partner and friend. They had been working on the quantum tunnel project for 5 years, combining human engineering with Valoran energy science. If it worked, ships could travel between distant galaxies in minutes instead of centuries. Think about it, Sarah said, watching human children chase Valoran younglings through the crowd. Our kids might visit other galaxies like we visit other planets. The festival was celebrating 50 years of human-Valoran cooperation, but it was also showing off their greatest achievements. Research teams from across the station were presenting discoveries that seemed like magic to older species. Healing devices that could regrow lost limbs. Computers that thought faster than any. Nexus collective machine. Ships that could phase in and out of normal space. Ambassador Hayes gave a speech in the main auditorium, with translators broadcasting her words to every corner of the station. 50 years ago, we were strangers who barely knew each other existed. Today we are family. Our children grow up speaking both languages. Our scientists share discoveries before they are even finished. Our future is brighter because we face it together. The crowd cheered, a sound that mixed human voices with the musical tones of Valoran communication. watching from the observation deck. Dr. Marcus Webb felt a deep satisfaction. His own daughter played with Valoran children in the station's parks. His research on dimensional physics had advanced more in 5 years of Valoran partnership than in the previous 20 years of human-only work, but not everyone in the galaxy was celebrating on the bridge of the Zephyrian dreadnought storm of conquest. Admiral Korath watched intelligence reports with growing anger. The humans and their crystal pets were developing technology that threatened everything the Zephyrian Empire had built. Their quantum tunnels could make our trade routes worthless, reported his intelligence officer. Their new materials are stronger than our best armor. Their energy weapons can punch through shields we thought were impenetrable. Korath studied the tactical displays showing Kepler Station. 20,000 targets, most of them the galaxy's best scientists and engineers. Taking them out would set back human Valoran research by decades. The Nexus Collective has agreed to support the operation, the intelligence officer continued. They're providing jamming technology to block distress signals. Several smaller species have promised to stay neutral. The plan was simple and brutal. Hit the station fast and hard, eliminate the Valorans completely, and teach humanity that some partnerships were too dangerous to be allowed. The hegemony, as they called their coalition, would reshape the galaxy's power structure in a single devastating blow. When do we strike? Korath asked. Tomorrow night, during the main celebration. Security will be minimal, and everyone will be gathered in predictable locations. Back on Kepler Station, the celebration continued into the night. Human musicians played alongside Valoran light singers, creating music that touched both heart and mind. Food stalls offered delicacies from a dozen worlds. Children ran laughing through corridors decorated with art from both cultures. Captain Elena Rodriguez commanded the station's small security force. She walked her patrol routes with practiced efficiency, but her mind was on the party. Her husband was performing with the station orchestra, and their son was participating in the junior science exhibition tomorrow. Quiet night, reported Sergeant Kim over the radio. Long-range sensors show normal traffic. A few cargo ships, some late arrivals for the festival. Elena nodded, though she felt a slight unease she couldn't explain. Maybe it was just the stress of keeping so many important people safe during such a large event. The station held representatives from every major species, including some who weren't exactly friendly to the Human Valoran Alliance. In the research sectors, night shift teams continued their work. Dr. Webb was in his lab with his Valoran partner, Zelith, running final checks on their dimensional phase technology. The device could make solid objects exist in multiple realities at once, essentially making them untouchable. The applications are incredible, Webb said, watching test objects flicker in and out of normal space. Ships that can't be hit by weapons. Buildings that can exist partially in other dimensions. People who can walk through walls? Zelith's crystal form pulsed with excitement. Your people's creativity combined with our energy manipulation. We create wonders neither species could achieve alone. They had no idea that those same wonders were exactly why the hegemony wanted them dead. The attack began at 0300 station time, during the sleep cycle when most residents were resting. Elena was reviewing security reports in her office when every alarm on the station began screaming at once. "Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace," shouted Sergeant Kim over the radio. Zephyrian signatures, Nexus Collective vessels, at least 12 different species. They're not responding to communications. Elena ran to the command center, her heart pounding. Through the main viewport she could see the attacking fleet. Massive warships surrounded the station like predators circling prey. Their weapons were already charging. "Get me a channel to all departments," Elena ordered. "Emergency evacuation protocols now." But even as she spoke, she knew it was too late. The first barrage of enemy fire hammered into the station's shields, overloading them instantly. Secondary explosions rocked the structure as power systems failed throughout multiple sections. "They're jamming all communications," reported the sensor operator. "We can't call for help." The hegemony had planned this perfectly. They had waited until most of the human and Valoran fleets were far away, attending other ceremonies or conducting routine patrols. Kepler Station was alone and defenseless. Boarding pods slammed into the station's hull like metal fists. Zephyrian shock troops poured through the breaches, their weapons already firing. They moved with military precision, following predetermined routes to maximize casualties, but Elena quickly realized something horrible. The attackers weren't trying to capture the station or steal its technology. They were hunting Valorans specifically, using weapons designed to shatter crystal biology. Every Valoran they found was killed instantly, while humans who didn't resist were simply shot down. "Fall back to Research Sector 7, Elena ordered her security teams. "Protect the civilians." Dr. Webb was in his lab when the first explosions shook the station. Alarms wailed as emergency lights bathed everything in red. Zeleth's crystal. Body had turned pale with fear, colors flickering rapidly across his surface. "What's happening?" Zeleth asked. Before Webb could answer, armed figures appeared in the laboratory doorway. Zephyrian soldiers in combat armor, weapons trained on them both. The lead soldier spoke in accented English. "Dr. Marcus Webb, your research ends here. Step away from the crystal." Webb moved protectively in front of his partner. "This is a research station. We're not military targets." "You are developing weapons that threaten galactic stability," the soldier replied. "The Valorans have corrupted human development. This corruption ends today." Webb realized with growing horror what was happening. This wasn't a random attack or a robbery, it was genocide. They were killing every Valoran on the station to stop human-Valoran cooperation. "These people are refugees," Webb said desperately. "They came here seeking shelter, they've never hurt anyone." "They have made you dangerous," the soldier said, raising his weapon toward Zeleth. "That is harm enough." Webb threw himself between the gun and his friend. The energy blast meant for Zeleth burned through his chest instead. As he fell, Webb heard Zeleth scream, a sound like breaking crystal that tore at his heart. Similar scenes played out across the station. Human researchers died trying to protect Valoran colleagues. Security teams fought desperately against overwhelming odds. Civilians ran through corridors while explosions echoed behind them. Captain Rodriguez gathered her remaining forces in the main plaza, now a battlefield littered with bodies. About 100 humans had managed to reach the rally point, along with maybe 20 Valorans who had survived the initial assault. "The escape pods?" she asked her lieutenant. "Destroyed. They targeted the docking bays first. No way off the station." Elena looked at the terrified faces around her. Scientists who had never held weapons. Engineers who just wanted to build a better future. Families who had come here seeking knowledge and peace. "Then we make our stand here," she said, checking her weapon. "For our friends, for our future." The Valorans in the group began to glow brighter, their bodies shifting through rainbow colors. Elena had never seen them like this before. Usually calm and peaceful, they now radiated something that felt like controlled fury. "We will not die quietly," said Viren, Sarachun's research partner. "We may not know war, but we know justice." The final battle lasted 3 hours. Human security forces fought with desperate courage while Valoran survivors used their energy powers in ways Elena had never imagined. Crystal beings hurled bolts of pure force that melted through armor. They created shields of solid light that stopped enemy weapons. Some even managed to phase partially out of normal space, making themselves harder to hit. But there were too many attackers and too few defenders. One by one, the humans fell protecting their alien friends. One by one, the Valorans died despite their advanced abilities. Elena Rodriguez made her last stand at the memorial wall, where pictures of human and Valoran children smiled down at the battle. A Zephyrian soldier's blast took her in the shoulder, spinning her around. As she fell, she saw Viren still fighting, her crystal body blazing like a star as she held off a dozen enemies. Then the light faded and silence fell over Kepler Station. When the rescue ships arrived 6 hours later, they found only death. Every Valoran on the station had been killed, their crystal forms shattered into glittering dust. The humans who had tried to defend them lay scattered throughout the corridors, their bodies bearing witness to their final courage. Captain Sarah Chun of the research vessel Prometheus walked through the ruins with tears streaming down her face. She found Viren's remains in the plaza, surrounded by scorch marks from her final battle. Nearby lay the bodies of human security officers who had died trying to protect her. In the research labs, she discovered Dr. Webb's body still positioned protectively over the spot where Zeleth had died. The walls were covered with blast marks, evidence of the desperate fight that had taken place there. 12,000 Valorans, reported the search team leader. 8,000 humans, no survivors in either group. Sarah stared at the readings, trying to make sense of the numbers. In one night, the hegemony had wiped out 50 years of cooperation. They had murdered some of the galaxy's greatest minds and destroyed irreplaceable research. But as she walked through the silent corridors, Sarah began to feel something growing inside her chest. Not just grief, though, that threatened to crush her. Not just anger, though, that burned like fire in her veins. Something colder. Something harder. Something that promised the hegemony would regret teaching humanity this lesson about galactic politics. The Valorans had been more than allies. They had been friends, partners, family. And family was something humans would kill to protect. The galaxy was about to learn that some lessons cut both ways. The news reached Earth 3 days after the massacre. Captain Sarah Chun stood in the briefing room of Luna Command, delivering her report to the Emergency Council. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she described what she had found. At Kepler Station. Total casualties are confirmed at 20,000, she said, staring at the data pad that contained names instead of numbers. 12,000 Valorans, 8,000 humans. No survivors. The station has been completely destroyed. General Patricia Morrison, head of Earth's military forces, leaned forward in her chair. What about our response ships? Surely some of our fleet was close enough to help. The attack was coordinated across 17 systems, Sarah replied. Human and allied ships were drawn away by false emergency signals. By the time anyone realized what was happening, it was over. President. Amanda Foster sat in silence for a long moment. She had known many of the victims personally. Dr. Webb had been her science advisor. Captain Rodriguez had served on her security detail before transferring to station command. These weren't just casualties of war, they were friends? The Galactic Council? She asked finally. They've issued a statement calling it an unfortunate incident and promising to investigate, said Ambassador Hayes. Several species are already suggesting that humans provoked the attack by sharing dangerous technology with the Valorans. President Foster stood up slowly, her face showing no emotion. Send a message to all human colonies and vessels. Everyone comes home, now? Cut all trade agreements, all diplomatic contacts, all cooperative research projects. Humanity is withdrawing from galactic affairs. Ma'am, General Morrison said carefully, that will look like we're abandoning our responsibilities to the Council. We don't have responsibilities to the Council anymore, Foster replied. We have responsibilities to our dead. The message went out on all channels, broadcast in 12 languages to every human settlement in known space. It was simple and direct. Come home. We will handle this ourselves. Within a week, the galaxy began to notice the change. Human traders stopped visiting alien ports. Human diplomats were called from their posts, packed up, and left without explanation. Research stations that had hosted mixed species teams suddenly became human-only facilities. The economic impact was immediate. Humans had become major suppliers of raw materials, manufactured goods, and technological innovations. Their sudden absence left gaps in supply chains across dozens of star systems. What are they planning? Asked Admiral Korath during a hegemony leadership meeting. The Zephyrian commander had expected humanity to file protests and demand compensation. Instead, they had simply vanished from galactic society. Perhaps they're accepting their place, suggested Nexus Node Prime, speaking through its artificial voice. The lesson has been learned. But intelligence reports suggested something different. Human ships were moving through space, but they weren't trading or exploring. They were gathering. Every human vessel in the galaxy was converging on the Sol system like iron filings drawn to a magnet. On Earth, President Foster called together the greatest minds humanity had left. Scientists, engineers, military leaders, and philosophers gathered in the secure facilities beneath Geneva. Their mission was simple: prepare for war, but not the kind of war the galaxy expected. Dr. Elena Vasquez had worked with the Valorans for 15 years, learning their techniques for manipulating quantum energy fields. Now she stood in a laboratory deep underground, teaching those same techniques to human volunteers. The Valorans saw energy as something to work with, she explained to her students. They listened to quantum fields and moved with them. But humans think differently. We don't just listen, we command. The volunteer, a young woman named Lisa Park, closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. Energy crackled around her fingers, but instead of the gentle flow the Valorans had used, this was harsh and controlled. She shaped the energy into a spear of pure force that could punch through steel. Good, Dr. Vasquez said. Now imagine 1,000 humans working together, all focused on the same target. Similar experiments were taking place in facilities across the Sol system. The Valorans had shared more than technology with humanity. They had taught humans to access quantum consciousness networks, to link their minds across vast distances, to see and manipulate reality in ways that most species considered impossible. The Valorans had used these abilities for research and communication. Humans were learning to use them for war. Dr. James Park, the physicist who had first learned energy manipulation from the Valoran Kethril, now led the most secret project in human history. In a shielded facility on the dark side of the moon, he was building weapons that violated everything the galaxy thought it knew about physics. The quantum disruptor is ready for testing, he told President Foster during one of her visits. It can phase energy through any known shield material. The target never sees it coming. Show me, Foster said. Park activated the device, targeting a block of Zephyrian battle armor across the room. The armor was designed to stop weapons that could crack planets. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the armor simply ceased to exist, its atoms scattered across several dimensions. Range? Foster asked. Theoretically unlimited. If we can see the target, we can hit it. Foster nodded, but her expression remained cold. The woman who had once negotiated peace treaties and cultural exchanges was gone. In her place stood someone harder, someone who understood that the galaxy respected only one language. Other projects were advancing just as quickly. Dimensional artillery that could strike targets from parallel realities. Ships that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making them nearly impossible to track or destroy. Communication networks that let every human in the galaxy share thoughts and emotions instantly. But the most frightening development was happening to the humans themselves. The grief and rage from Kepler Station had created something unprecedented in human history: perfect unity of purpose. Every human in the galaxy was connected through quantum consciousness links, sharing not just information but feelings. The pain of loss, the fury of betrayal, the absolute determination to make things right. Captain Sarah Chun felt it every day. She would be working on her ship's modifications when suddenly she would experience Dr. Webb's last moments, seeing through his eyes as he died protecting his friend. Or she would feel the desperate courage of Captain Rodriguez, fighting hopeless odds to defend innocent people. The connections were growing stronger. Humans across the galaxy were beginning to move and think as one organism, driven by collective purpose that burned like a star in their shared consciousness. It's unprecedented, reported Dr. Vasquez to the Leadership Council. We're seeing abilities that shouldn't be possible. Humans who can predict enemy movements before they happen. Soldiers who can coordinate attacks across light years without any communication delay. Engineers who can design weapons by accessing the memories of dead Valoran scientists. President Foster listened to the reports with growing satisfaction. The galaxy had wanted to teach humanity a lesson. They had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. The first test came 6 months after Kepler Station. A Zephyrian patrol fleet intercepted a human cargo ship near the border of their space. They demanded to search the vessel for dangerous technology, expecting the usual human compliance with galactic law. Instead, the cargo ship simply vanished. Admiral Korath studied the sensor logs with growing confusion. One moment the human ship had been there, solid and real. The next moment it was gone, as if it had never existed. "Cloaking device?" he asked his science officer. "No, sir. We scanned all known frequencies. The ship didn't hide. It went somewhere else." "Somewhere else? Another dimension, perhaps? Or another reality?" The energy readings suggest they shifted their entire molecular structure out of normal space. Korath felt the first stirring of unease. Human technology had always been crude but effective. This was something entirely different. This was impossible. The second test came 2 weeks later. A Nexus collective processing station reported strange signals in their computer networks. Files were being accessed and copied by an intelligence that seemed to exist inside their systems but couldn't be tracked or blocked. "The intrusion is unlike anything we've encountered," reported the station's AI administrator. "It appears to be conscious, but it moves through our networks like thought through a brain. It has copied our entire database of military capabilities and withdrawn without leaving any trace of how it entered." By the third month, reports were coming in from across hegemony space, ships disappearing and reappearing without warning, computer systems being infiltrated by untraceable intelligences, research facilities finding their most secure projects mysteriously sabotaged. The galaxy's intelligence networks began picking up fragments of information about human activities. Massive construction projects in the Sol system, strange energy readings from human colonies, communications traffic that followed no known encryption protocols. "They're preparing for something," Admiral Korath told the Hegemony Council. "The question is what?" The answer came on the first anniversary of Kepler Station. President Foster stood in the command center of the new orbital facility above Earth. Through the viewport, she could see the results of a year's desperate work. Hundreds of ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Vessels that flickered in and out of reality, their hulls made of materials that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "All fleets report ready," announced Admiral Chun Sarah's younger sister, who had taken command of the new Terran Navy. "Quantum networks are stable. Dimensional weapons are charged. All personnel are linked through the consciousness grid." Foster nodded, feeling the presence of every human in the galaxy connected to her mind. Millions of people, all sharing the same memories of loss, the same determination for justice, the same cold fury that had driven them through months of preparation. "Open a channel to Galactic Council headquarters," she ordered. The alien leaders appeared on the main screen, their faces showing various degrees of concern and confusion. They had been trying to contact humanity for months without success. "President Foster," said Chancellor Vex of the Altarian Republic, "we're pleased to finally hear from you. There have been disturbing reports of human activities. We hope we can resolve any misunderstandings through diplomatic channels." Foster looked at the beings who had stood by while her people were slaughtered, who had called it an unfortunate incident and suggested that the victims were to blame. "You wanted to teach us our place in the galaxy," she said quietly. "You wanted to show us that strength is the only thing that matters. Consider the lesson learned." She gestured to Admiral Chun, who opened communications to every human ship in known space. The message was simple and absolute: Operation Justice begins now. Across 17 star systems, human fleets materialized from nowhere, their quantum shifted, hulls becoming solid as they dropped into normal space. Weapons that had been impossible a year ago began charging with energies drawn from parallel dimensions. The galaxy had taught humanity that friendship was weakness, that cooperation was dangerous, that the strong survived by destroying the weak. Now, humanity was going to demonstrate exactly how well they had learned that lesson. The hegemony had created something they never intended, a species that combined human determination with Valoran science, human adaptability with Valoran knowledge, human fury with Valoran power. They had made humanity stronger than either species could have been alone, and now they would face the consequences of that strength. The first strike hit 17 targets simultaneously across the galaxy. Admiral Chen watched from the command deck of the Vengeance, humanity's new flagship, as her quantum-linked consciousness connected to every human commander in the field. "Zephyrian homeworld defense grid is down," reported Captain Martinez from the assault fleet. 17 minutes from first contact to complete destruction. Their shields couldn't even detect our weapons. June felt a cold satisfaction flow through the shared human consciousness. The Zephyrians had built their orbital defenses over thousands of years, layering shield generators and weapon platforms until they thought their world was impossible to attack. They had been wrong. Human quantum disruptors had simply phased through every barrier as if it didn't exist, striking the power cores from dimensions the Zephyrians couldn't even see. "Nexus Prime facility is offline," came another report from across the galaxy. "Their central processing core has been infected with our viral consciousness. It's turning their own computational power against them." Admiral Chun smiled grimly. The Nexus Collective had always prided themselves on their advanced artificial intelligence systems. Now those same systems were being controlled by human minds that could think in quantum dimensions, using the aliens' own computers to tear apart their military networks. "Hegemony fleet at Rigel 7? She asked. "Destroyed," replied Commander Singh. "They tried to retreat when our ships started phasing in and out of normal space. But you can't run from enemies who can exist in multiple realities at once." The reports kept coming, each one confirming what humanity had become in the years since Kepler Station. They were no longer the desperate refugees who had once begged for acceptance in galactic society. They were something new and terrible, shaped by loss into an instrument of perfect retribution on the bridge of the Zephyrian battleship Pride of Empire. Admiral Korath stared at his tactical displays in growing horror. His sensors showed empty space, but his ships were being destroyed by invisible weapons. Enemies that couldn't be tracked were tearing apart his most powerful vessels. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded. 43 in the last hour, his tactical officer replied. "The humans aren't using any technology we understand. Their weapons pass right through our shields. Their ships appear and disappear without warning." Korath had commanded fleets for 50 years, conquering dozens of weaker species. He had never faced an enemy like this. The humans fought like ghosts, striking from nowhere and vanishing before his forces could respond. "Send a message to the human fleet," he ordered. "Request terms for surrender." The reply came back in seconds, transmitted directly into his mind through channels he didn't know existed. The voice belonged to Admiral Chun, but behind it he could feel the presence of millions of other humans, all sharing the same cold purpose. "You taught us that strength is the only language the galaxy understands," the voice said. "We are speaking that language now." Then the Pride of Empire simply ceased to exist, its atoms scattered across 17 dimensions by weapons that should have been impossible. Back on Earth, President Foster watched the battle reports with a mixture of satisfaction and sorrow. Each victory brought justice for the dead, but it also proved how far humanity had fallen from their ideals of cooperation and peace. "The Altarian Republic is requesting immediate surrender," reported her aide. "They claim they never supported the hegemony attacks." "What about the vote in the Galactic Council?" Foster asked. "They abstained when the motion to condemn the Kepler massacre was proposed." Foster's expression didn't change. "Then they chose their side, no quarter?" The war raged across the galaxy for 6 more months, but everyone knew it was already over. The hegemony forces had been designed to fight conventional enemies using traditional weapons and tactics. They had no defense against humans who could think as one organism, fight from multiple dimensions, and predict enemy movements before they happened. Captain Sarah Chun led the assault on the Nexus Collective's homeworld, her consciousness linked with every human in her fleet. Through quantum networks, she could feel her sister's thoughts on the other side of the galaxy, sharing tactical data and emotional support across impossible distances. The planet's surface defenses are adapting to our attacks, reported her weapons officer. Their AI is learning our patterns. Sarah smiled. Then let's teach it something new. She reached out through the quantum consciousness network, connecting her mind with Dr. Vasquez back on Earth. Together, they had developed humanity's most frightening weapon, the ability to project human consciousness directly into enemy computer systems. Sarah felt her awareness expand beyond her physical body, flowing through quantum channels into the Nexus Homeworld's defense network. The alien AI tried to resist, but it had never faced an intelligence that could exist in multiple realities. Simultaneously, within minutes, Sarah had turned the planet's own weapons against its defenders. Orbital platforms designed to protect the world began firing on surface installations. The Nexus Collective's greatest strength, their interconnected computer network, became their greatest weakness when humans learned to inhabit it. Planet secure, Sarah reported, though part of her consciousness remained linked with the captured defense systems. Moving to the next target. The pattern repeated across the galaxy. Wherever the hegemony forces tried to make a stand, human fleets would appear from nowhere, strike with impossible weapons, and vanish before any counterattack could be organized. Species that had dominated space for millennia found themselves helpless against enemies who fought like living nightmares. On Alteria Prime, Chancellor Vex watched human ships materialize in orbit around his world. His defense fleet had been destroyed hours ago, their ships turned into quantum dust by weapons that existed outside normal physics. Open a channel, he ordered, his voice shaking with fear. The human face that appeared on his screen belonged to Admiral Chun, but Vex could see something inhuman in her eyes. A cold intelligence that felt like the judgment of an entire species. We surrender, Vex said quickly. Please, we were never part of the hegemony. We only wanted to maintain neutrality. Neutrality, Chun repeated, her voice carrying harmonics that hurt Vex's ears. You maintained neutrality while our friends were slaughtered. You abstained when we asked for justice. You chose to do nothing. We couldn't have known. Your ships provided sensor data that helped the hegemony track our diplomatic vessels. Chun interrupted. Your trade agreements funded their military expansion. Your silence gave them permission to commit genocide. Vex felt his hope crumble. The humans had somehow gained access to classified information that should have been impossible to obtain. They knew exactly who had helped the hegemony and how. What do you want? He asked desperately. We want our friends back, Chun said softly. Since we can't have that, we'll settle for making sure this never happens again. The Altarian defense platforms, now under human control, began charging their weapons. Vex realized with growing horror that the humans weren't interested in conquest or occupation. They were conducting a systematic extermination of everyone who had supported or enabled the Kepler massacre. Similar scenes played out across dozens of worlds. Species that had been part of the hegemony were destroyed completely, their worlds left empty and lifeless. Those who had remained neutral found their governments replaced by human-controlled artificial intelligences that monitored every action and prevented any future aggression. The war's end came suddenly and without ceremony. Admiral Korath's replacement, General Thylex, transmitted the final Zephyrian surrender from the ruins of their capital city. The Zephyrian Empire formally surrenders to human forces, the message said. We acknowledge human supremacy and accept whatever terms you choose to impose. President Foster received the surrender in the same underground command center where humanity's transformation had begun. Around her stood the survivors of a species that had learned to weaponize their greatest virtue, the love they felt for their friends. Terms? She asked the assembled human leadership. What terms do we offer to those who slaughtered our families? The answer came through the quantum consciousness network, the collective will of billions of humans speaking as one voice. It was simple and absolute. No terms. No mercy, no survivors. But even as humanity celebrated their complete victory, some began to question what they had become. Dr. Vasquez stood in her laboratory, looking at weapons that could destroy reality itself, and wondered if they had won the war at the cost of their souls. "We're not the same people who offered sanctuary to Valoran refugees," she said to her assistant. "We've become something else, something harder." "The galaxy made us choose," her assistant replied. "Peace or strength. Cooperation or survival, they forced us to pick." Vasquez nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had lost something precious in the transformation. The species that had once shared their knowledge freely and welcomed strangers as friends was gone. In its place stood something magnificent and terrible, forged by grief into an instrument of perfect justice. The last hegemony stronghold fell 3 days later. The fortress moon of Kepler VII, heavily defended and thought to be impregnable, simply vanished when human quantum weapons tore it out of normal space-time. With its destruction, the war was truly over. The hegemony no longer existed, their member species were extinct or scattered. Their technology had been absorbed into human databases. Their worlds now served as monuments to the price of teaching humanity about galactic politics. Admiral Chun stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Kepler station, looking out at the memorial where Valoran crystal formations grew in patterns that defied physics. Each crystal contained the preserved consciousness of a Valoran who had died defending human friends. "They would have wanted us to show mercy," she said to her sister Sarah, who had joined her for the memorial service. "They also would have wanted to live," Sarah replied. "The galaxy made its choice when it decided our friendship was too dangerous to be allowed." Chun touched one of the crystals, feeling an echo of Viren's last thoughts as she died protecting human children. The Valoran had forgiven her killers even as they destroyed her, offering her consciousness to the quantum network so that humans could access her knowledge. That forgiveness had become humanity's greatest weapon. The Valoran's scientific abilities, combined with human determination and unified by shared grief, had created something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that could love perfectly and hate with equal precision. The memorial service lasted 3 hours, with representatives from every human colony in attendance. They spoke the names of the dead, both human and Valoran, while quantum networks carried their words to every corner of human space. But they also spoke a promise that this would never happen again, that no species would ever again mistake human compassion for weakness, that the galaxy would remember Kepler Station not as a tragedy, but as the birthplace of a new galactic order. An order where strength protected the weak, where unity made civilization possible, and where those who chose genocide would face the absolute justice of a species that had learned to turn love itself into a weapon of war. 5 years after the end of the Hegemony War, President Foster stood before the completed Valoran Memorial at Kepler Station. The structure defied every law of physics the galaxy had once understood. Crystal formations grew in 17 dimensions, simultaneously, visible from any point in known space through quantum resonance fields that existed. Outside normal reality, the memorial's central spire bore words in both human script and Valoran light patterns. They tried to teach us weakness. Instead, they taught us strength. Foster touched the memorial's surface and felt the preserved consciousness of every Valoran who had died that terrible night. Their memories, their knowledge, and their forgiveness lived on in the quantum networks that now connected every human mind across the galaxy. "The dedication ceremony is ready to begin," said Admiral Chun, approaching through the crowd of dignitaries and survivors. Representatives from across human space had gathered for this moment, but they were the only species present. The rest of the galaxy watched from a careful distance. Foster nodded, though part of her attention remained focused on the quantum consciousness network that linked her to billions of other humans. She could feel their shared emotions, pride in what they had accomplished, sorrow for what they had lost, and a cold satisfaction that justice had been served. "Citizens of the Terran hegemony," Foster began, her words broadcast across human space, through networks that operated faster than light itself. "We gather today not to celebrate war, but to remember what we learned from it." The name change had been inevitable. The old Earth government, with its hopes for peaceful cooperation and galactic friendship, had died with the Valorans at Kepler Station. In its place stood something harder and more practical, the Terran hegemony, a civilization that understood the galaxy's true nature. 5 years ago, we were naive enough to believe that kindness would be met with kindness, Foster continued. We thought that sharing our knowledge and opening our homes would create lasting friendships. We were wrong. In the crowd, Dr. Vasquez listened with mixed feelings. She had helped design the weapons that won the war, but she sometimes wondered about the cost. Humanity had gained incredible power, but they had lost something precious in the process, their innocence. The galaxy taught us that strength is the only currency that matters, Foster said. That cooperation is seen as weakness. That showing mercy to refugees marks you as a target for destruction. We learned these lessons well. Behind Foster, holographic displays showed the current state of galactic civilization. Where once hundreds of species had competed for resources and territory, now there was only careful order. The Terran hegemony controlled the most advanced technology in known space. Other species survived by staying out of human affairs and causing no trouble. Today we dedicate this memorial not just to the dead, but to the transformation their sacrifice made possible, Foster announced. The Valorans gave us their knowledge. Our enemies gave us purpose. Together, these gifts made us stronger than either species could have been alone. The ceremony continued with readings from human and Valoran texts, music that blended both cultures and demonstrations of the quantum technologies that had grown from their partnership. But everyone present understood the deeper message. This was as much a warning as a memorial. After the ceremony, Foster walked through the rebuilt research stations with Admiral Chun and Dr. Vasquez. The facilities were larger and more advanced than ever before, but they felt different. Where once human and Valoran researchers had worked side by side, now only humans remained, carrying on both traditions in quantum-linked minds. The other species are afraid of us, Dr. Vasquez said quietly. They see what we've become and they remember what happened to the hegemony. Good, Admiral Chun replied. Fear prevents stupid decisions. If they're afraid to attack us, maybe we'll never have to fight another war. Foster stopped at a viewport overlooking the memorial gardens, where crystal formations grew alongside earth flowers and patterns that seemed to shift between dimensions. The question is whether we've become something our old friends would recognize. Through the quantum network, she felt the preserved memories of Viren, her old research partner. The Valoran's consciousness had been saved at the moment of death, uploaded into the human collective mind along with all her knowledge and experiences. Foster touched the network interface and felt Viren's presence respond, warm and forgiving despite everything that had happened. The Valoran's thoughts came through clearly. You did what you had to do, we understand. But Foster wasn't sure she understood it herself. Humanity had won total victory, but at the cost of becoming something unrecognizable from the species that had once offered shelter to refugees. Across the galaxy, other species watched the memorial ceremony with careful attention. On worlds that had survived the war by staying neutral, leaders studied every word of Foster's speech for hints about humanity's future intentions. Chancellor Vex's replacement on Alteria Prime reviewed intelligence reports with growing unease. Human expansion has increased by 30% this year, his analyst reported. They're establishing colonies and systems that were considered uninhabitable. Their quantum technology lets them survive in environments that would kill any other species. Military buildup? The Chancellor asked. Constant. But not for conquest. They're preparing for something else. Something bigger. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. Humanity had stopped expanding through diplomacy or trade. Instead, they simply took what they needed and dared anyone to object. Their technology was so far advanced that resistance seemed pointless, but the most disturbing reports came from species who had tried to establish contact with human colonies. Diplomatic missions returned with stories of a civilization that barely seemed human anymore. They move in perfect coordination, reported one ambassador. Thousands of people working together without speaking, as if they share one mind. Their children are born already connected to the quantum network. They know things they shouldn't know, See things they shouldn't see? The ambassador paused, struggling to find words for what he had witnessed. They've become something new. Something that incorporates both human and Valoran traits, but transcends both species. They're not just using Valoran technology, they've become it. Back on Earth, Foster reviewed these same reports in her office beneath Geneva. The quantum consciousness network let her experience them from multiple perspectives simultaneously, feeling the fear and confusion of alien observers through intercepted communications. "They're right to be afraid," she said to her cabinet. "We're not the same species that joined the Galactic Council 70 years ago. We've evolved beyond what either humans or Valorans were individually." Dr. Vasquez, now Earth's chief science advisor, pulled up holographic displays showing humanity's development since the war. "Our children are born with quantum-enhanced consciousness. They can manipulate energy fields instinctively. Some can exist partially in other dimensions from birth. They're becoming something that incorporates the best of both species," added Admiral Chun. "Human adaptability and determination, combined with Valoran energy manipulation and expanded consciousness. The fusion is creating abilities that neither species had alone." Foster nodded, though she felt a complex mix of pride and loss. The galaxy wanted to separate us from the Valorans. Instead, they forced us to become them. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. The hegemony had tried to prevent human-Valoran cooperation by destroying one species. Instead, they had created a fusion that was far more powerful than either group had been separately. "What about the other survivors?" Foster asked. "The species that stayed neutral during the war?" "They're adapting," Admiral Chun reported. "Most have established buffer zones around human space and avoid any actions that might be seen as threatening. A few have requested permission to study in our research facilities, and we've said no every time." "The age of sharing our knowledge freely ended at Kepler Station?" Foster stood and walked to the window overlooking Lake Geneva. The surface of the water reflected not just the sky above, but glimpses of parallel dimensions where different versions of Earth existed. Quantum technology had advanced to the point where reality itself was becoming flexible. "Sometimes I wonder what Varin and the others would think of what we've become," she said. Through the consciousness network she felt an immediate response from the preserved Valoran minds. Their thoughts came through clearly, understanding, acceptance, and something that might have been approval. "They know we had no choice," Dr. Vasquez said quietly. "The galaxy gave us a lesson in how power works. We learned it perfectly." Foster touched the quantum interface again, accessing the collective memories of both species. She could experience the last moments of Kepler Station from dozens of perspectives, feeling the desperate courage of humans who died protecting their friends and the forgiving sacrifice of Valorans who gave their consciousness to save human knowledge. But she could also feel the transformation that followed, the cold fury that had driven humanity's technological advancement, the perfect unity that had made them unstoppable in war, and the gradual evolution into something that transcended both parent species. "The memorial inscription is accurate," Foster said finally. "They tried to teach us weakness. They tried to show us that cooperation was dangerous, that helping others made us vulnerable, that strength came only through domination." She turned back to her advisors, her eyes reflecting the quantum energies that now flowed through every human consciousness. "Instead, they taught us how to be stronger than we ever imagined. They showed us that love could be weaponized, that grief could fuel evolution, that unity could become a force of nature." "And now?" Admiral Chun asked. Foster smiled, though there was something both beautiful and terrible in the expression. "Now we are what the galaxy made us. A species that learned to combine the best of two civilizations, forged by loss into something magnificent and dangerous." She gestured toward the window, where stars shone through dimensional overlays that revealed parallel universes. "The galaxy wanted to teach us our place in the natural order. They succeeded. Our place is at the top." Through the quantum network, every human in known space felt the truth of those words. They had become something unprecedented, a civilization. that could love perfectly and fight with equal precision, that honored the memory of gentle refugees by becoming an unstoppable force for order. The Valorans had given them knowledge. Their enemies had given them purpose. The combination had created something that neither friend nor foe had anticipated, a species that could transform tragedy into strength, loss into evolution, and love itself into the foundation of galactic dominance. Standing in her office overlooking a world that flickered between realities, President Foster spoke the final words that would be remembered. Across the galaxy, they thought they were eliminating weakness. They thought they were teaching us our place. Instead, they showed us that in this universe only strength matters, and they made us stronger than we ever imagined possible. The age of human cooperation had ended at Kepler Station. The age of human supremacy had begun in its ashes, and across the galaxy, other species could only watch and remember the lesson that had cost them everything. Never mistake human compassion for weakness, because when that compassion is betrayed, it becomes something far more dangerous than any weapon ever built.
James Reed woke up with a gasp, his body covered in sweat. The dreams were getting worse. Every night for the past week, he saw strange battles in space, felt the weight of weapons he had never held, and heard orders in a language he somehow understood, but couldn't speak while awake. Not again, he muttered, checking the clock. 4:13 a.m. Too early to get up, too late to fall back asleep. As a former Special Forces soldier now working security for the government, James was used to stress and bad dreams. But these were different. They felt like memories. Dr. Marcus Wilson stared at his computer screen in disbelief. He ran the test again, but the results stayed the same. There was something strange in the DNA samples he was studying. This can't be right, he said to himself. He had found what looked like artificial markers in human genetic code. Markers that seemed designed to stay dormant until activated by something specific. He picked up his phone. This wasn't something he could keep to himself. 3 days later, strange objects began appearing around the world. Silver, smooth, and shaped like eggs, they simply showed up overnight in major cities. No one knew how they got there. When touched, they did nothing, but people reported feeling strange near them, like the objects were waiting for something. In Washington, D.C., Director Evans of the Earth Defense Initiative called an emergency meeting. "What do we know about these objects?" he asked the room, full of scientists and military officers. "Not much," said a scientist. "They're made of a material we can't identify. They don't seem to do anything, but they're emitting a low-level energy field we don't understand. And they just appeared? No one saw how they got here?" asked Admiral Stone, commander of the newly formed Space Fleet. "No, sir. One moment they weren't there, the next they were." Director Evans frowned. "I don't like it. Quarantine all of them. No civilian contact." James was assigned to the containment team for the object found in New York City. He stood guard as scientists ran tests, trying not to think about his dreams. During a break, he found himself alone with the object. Something pulled him toward it. Without thinking, he reached out and touched its smooth surface. The world exploded into light. Images flooded his mind. Stars, battles, strange beings giving orders. He saw Earth, but thousands of years ago. He saw beings that looked like tall, thin humans with silver skin working on primitive humans, changing them, making them stronger, faster, more aggressive. He heard a name: the Architects. When he came back to his senses, he was on the floor and the object was glowing with a soft blue light. "Reed!" "What happened?" shouted his commander, rushing in. I don't know," James lied. "I got dizzy and must have touched it when I fell." Before anyone could ask more questions, all their phones beeped at once. Emergency broadcast. Across the world, people stared at their screens as satellites showed a massive ship entering the solar system. It was unlike anything humans had built, sleek, silver, and impossibly large. Then every screen, radio, and communication device on Earth broadcast the same message: "Our creations, our weapons. We have returned to claim what is ours." The world went into panic. But James felt a cold certainty. These were the beings from his dreams. The architects. In an emergency United Nations meeting, world leaders tried to make sense of what was happening. Dr. Wilson was brought in to explain his discovery. The genetic markers I found suggest that something, or someone, modified human DNA in our distant past, he explained. These modifications look designed to make humans better fighters, faster reflexes, stronger muscles, better at healing. But most importantly, there are dormant sections that seem designed to respond to a specific signal. Like the signal these objects might be sending? Asked Director Evans. Exactly. I believe these architects, as they call themselves, created humans as warriors, and now they've come back to use us for whatever war they're fighting. 3 days after their arrival, the architects sent another message. Earth will provide its warriors. The way? Genetic keys have been activated. Those who bear the marks will serve as intended. Resistance is not an option. The war approaches, and we require our weapons. Reports started coming in of people developing strange abilities, increased strength, faster healing, enhanced senses. James was one of them. His reflexes had become so fast that he could catch flies mid-air without trying. His night vision had improved dramatically. And the dreams were now clearer than ever. The world governments united in an emergency alliance and issued a response. Humanity belongs to itself. We will not serve as weapons in your war. The architect ship's response was immediate. A smaller vessel detached and headed toward Earth. Fear spread that they would attack, but instead, it entered orbit and sent down a single being, tall, silver-skinned, with eyes like liquid mercury. The emissary. You misunderstand, it said in perfect English during the broadcast meeting with world leaders. You were made for this purpose. It is your function. Just as a hammer does not choose whether to strike a nail, you do not choose whether to fight our war. The enemy approaches, the confluence, a threat to all life. We require our weapons. Director Evans stood up. We are not tools. We are people with our own will. The emissary tilted its head, looking confused by the concept. Your will was our gift to make you better warriors. But the choice is not yours. James and 11 others like him were gathered at a secret facility. All had touched the objects. All had developed enhanced abilities. All had the dreams. We need to understand what's happening to you, Dr. Wilson told them. And we need to figure out how to use it to protect Earth, not serve these architects. That night, James dreamed again. But this time, he saw something new. Humans fighting back against the architects, driving them away from Earth thousands of years ago. He saw the architects' surprise as their weapons turned against them. He woke up understanding. They lost control of us once before, he told the others the next morning. That's why they left. We weren't just weapons. We evolved beyond their control. As he spoke, alarms blared. The architect ship was powering up some kind of energy, weapon aiming at Earth. They're not asking anymore, said Admiral Stone, rushing into the room. They're taking what they want. James felt something stirring inside him, ancient knowledge buried in his activated genes. I know how their weapons work, he said, surprising himself. And I think I know how we can fight back. The first battle for humanity's freedom was about to begin. The architect's ship fired its weapon. A beam of bright blue light shot toward Earth. Everyone braced for destruction, but instead, the beam split into thousands of smaller beams that touched down across the planet. What are they doing, Admiral? Stone asked, watching the satellite feed. Dr. Wilson checked his instruments. It's not a destructive beam, it's activating something. James felt a strange tingling throughout his body. Others like him felt it too. The dormant genetic code inside them was waking up even more. They're turning us on like machines, James said through gritted teeth. Across the world, thousands of people suddenly developed abilities similar to James's group. Some grew stronger. Some moved faster. Some could hear or see things from great distances. And all of them started having the dreams. 3 days later, James could bench press 500 pounds without breaking a sweat. His speed tests showed he could run faster than any Olympic athlete. But the changes weren't just physical. I can read their language now, he told Dr. Wilson during tests. And I know how some of their technology works. It's like I've always known but forgot until now. Dr. Wilson nodded, making notes. The activated genes aren't just changing your body. They're unlocking knowledge buried in your DNA. Director, Evans called them to an emergency meeting. The architects have sent another message. They want us to hand over everyone who's been activated. That means you and about 10,000 others around the world. We've said no, but they're not taking it well. What's our plan? James asked. We fight, Admiral Stone said simply. We've united Earth's militaries into one defense force. But we need you special cases to help us understand their technology. Lisa Tanner entered James's life a week later. She was a tactical officer with the brightest mind James had ever seen, and she'd been activated too. But her abilities were different. I don't get stronger or faster, she explained as they worked together. But I can see patterns no one else can. Battle plans, weak points, strategies. It's like my brain was designed to outsmart enemies. Together they began training a special unit of activated humans. Each person had different skills, but they all shared the dreams and the growing knowledge of architect ways. Meanwhile, Dr. Wilson made a breakthrough. I found something in our genetic history, he told James and Lisa. The architects didn't just modify us once. They've been doing it throughout human history, making small changes. But about 5,000 years ago, something interesting happened. A different alien genetic signature appears in our DNA. Someone else interfered with the architect's work. Another alien race? James asked. It seems so. And after that interference, the architect genetic markers went dormant. Until now. The emissary requested another meeting, this time with James and other activated humans present. You resist what you are meant to be, the silver-skinned being said. The enemy approaches. The confluence will consume all life if not stopped. You were created for this fight. We'll defend ourselves, James replied. But as free people, not as your weapons. The emissary's mercury eyes narrowed. Freedom was not part of your design. Then your design was flawed, Lisa said. The emissary stared at her for a long moment. You are different. Your pattern is unexpected. After the meeting, Lisa confessed to James. When it looked at me, I could feel it scanning my DNA. There's something about me that confused it. That night, the architects took action. Smaller ships descended to Earth's surface, capturing hundreds of activated humans before anyone could stop them. The captives were taken to the main ship. We're getting strange readings from the ship, Admiral Stone reported. They're doing something to the people they took. 2 days later, the captured humans returned to Earth. But they weren't the same. Their eyes were blank, their movements mechanical. They attacked military bases with incredible strength and coordination, but no emotion. They had become the perfect warriors the architects wanted. With their humanity stripped away, Earth fought back. The first space battle happened when the architects tried to take another group of activated humans. Earth's new defense fleet, built with insights from people like James, managed to drive back the smaller architect ships. It was humanity's first victory, but it came at a cost. Many ships and pilots were lost. Late one night, as James worked in the lab studying architect technology, an alarm sounded. Someone had breached security. James ran to investigate and found a strange sight. An architect, but different from the emissary. This one's silver skin was marked with lines of blue. Guards had their guns trained on the intruder. Don't shoot, the architect said in perfect English. I am here to help you. Why should we trust you? James demanded. Because not all of us agree with reclaiming you as weapons. I am from a rebel faction. We believe what was done to your species was wrong. The architect called itself the Guardian and shared critical information after being taken into custody. You were designed to be adaptive and creative in ways my people are not, the Guardian explained. The architects are logical but rigid. We cannot think outside set patterns. That's why we created you, to fight in ways our enemy wouldn't expect. Who is this enemy? The confluence? Lisa asked. The Guardian's expression darkened. They are coming. We have detected their first scout ships entering this galaxy. The Confluence does not fight like normal enemies. They assimilate. They absorb all life they encounter, adding biological and technological uniqueness to their own. Why should we help you fight them? Director Evans asked. Because if they reach Earth, they will add humans to their collective. Your individuality, your freedom, everything you value will be gone. James led a team to investigate an ancient site the Guardian identified in South America. Under an old temple, they found an architect base thousands of years old. This was a training facility, James said, somehow knowing as he touched the walls. They brought early humans here to turn them into warriors. Lisa studied strange symbols on a wall. I can read this, she said with surprise. It says the humans here rebelled. They turned against their masters and drove them off Earth. James nodded. Just like in my dreams. We fought them before. As they explored deeper, they found a chamber with a machine still humming with power after thousands of years. What is this? Lisa asked. James touched the console and knowledge flowed into him. It's a defense system. The rebels left it for us, in case the architects ever returned. When he activated it, a holographic map appeared, showing Earth with a shield of energy surrounding it. This could protect us, James said with hope. But as the machine powered up, a message from Admiral Stone came through their communicators. The Confluence has been spotted. A small fleet just destroyed our outpost on Mars. They're coming. James and Lisa looked at each other. The real war was about to begin. They're not attacking yet, Admiral Stone said, pointing to the holographic display showing the Confluence ships holding position beyond Mars. They're studying us. The war room was tense. Leaders from around the world watched as humanity faced not one but two alien threats. The architect ships still orbited Earth, demanding their weapons be handed over. The Confluence ships waited just beyond Mars, an unknown horror preparing to strike. James, Lisa, and the Guardian stood together at one side of the room. The rebel architect had provided valuable information, but many still didn't trust it. The Confluence always studies its prey before attacking, the Guardian explained. They're learning your defenses, your weapons, your tactics. When they strike, they'll know your weaknesses. Then we should hit them first, James suggested. Admiral Stone nodded. My thoughts exactly. We're preparing our fleet now. The battle above Mars was humanity's first real test against the Confluence. Earth ships, upgraded with technology based on James's activated knowledge, engaged the strange, organic-looking vessels of the enemy. From the command center on Earth, James, Lisa, and others watched the battle unfold. The Confluence ships moved, in ways that defied normal physics, stretching and reforming as human weapons hit them. They're adapting, Lisa noticed, her tactical mind seeing patterns. Each time we hit them, they changed to resist that weapon. But humanity had a surprising advantage: unpredictability. While the architect's strategy would have been logical and predictable, humans fought with intuition and creativity. Attack. Pattern Delta, Admiral Stone ordered over the comm. This wasn't a standard military pattern, but one Lisa had created just for this battle. The Earth ships broke formation, each attacking from a different angle with different weapons. The Confluence couldn't adapt to all of them at once. 3 enemy ships were destroyed before the rest retreated beyond Neptune. It was humanity's first victory against the Confluence. This is fascinating, Thomas Gray said, his eyes wide with excitement. The historian had been brought in to help understand the ancient sites the Guardian was revealing around Earth. They stood inside a mountain in Tibet, where a hidden architect base had been sealed for thousands of years. These records show the architects used Earth as more than just a breeding ground for warriors, Thomas explained, studying symbols on the walls. They were running from the Confluence even back then. Earth was a hidden outpost where they created weapons, us, that could fight in ways the Confluence couldn't predict. James touched a strange device in the center of the room, and it hummed to life. A holographic map appeared, showing hundreds of stars. What are these? Lisa asked. The Guardian stepped forward. These are worlds where human-derived warriors were sent. The architects took early humans and seeded them across many planets, creating variations for different environments. You mean, there are other humans out there? James asked in shock. Not exactly humans, modified to suit different worlds, but from the same genetic base. Your cousins, you might say. Lisa studied the map closely. Some of these stars have different markings. Those are worlds touched by the Shapers, the Guardian explained. The Shapers? Dr. Wilson asked. The third species I mentioned. They believed the architect's use of sentient beings as weapons was wrong. They modified some of the human-derived species, including yours, to develop beyond their programming. They gave you the potential for true free will. Back on Earth, the architects had grown impatient. Their main fleet had begun forcibly taking activated humans, converting them into drone warriors with no will of their own. We're losing people every day, Director Evans reported grimly. But something unexpected was happening. In battle against the confluence, the human forces were showing remarkable success. Admiral Stone's fleet had engaged the enemy 3 more times, winning each encounter. The confluence doesn't understand how we fight, Lisa explained during a strategy meeting. They expect logical patterns, but humans use instinct and emotion in combat. We surprise them. Even the architects seemed surprised by humanity's effectiveness. The emissary requested another meeting. Your resistance to control makes you inefficient weapons, it stated. Yet your victories against the confluence are impressive. The Architect High Command is considering a proposal. Serve willingly, as allies rather than as controlled weapons. We'll consider it, Director Evans replied cautiously. After the emissary left, James turned to the Guardian. They're getting desperate, aren't they? The Guardian nodded. The main architect fleet has suffered defeats against the confluence. They need you more than they want to admit. Deep beneath the Sahara Desert, James and Lisa activated another ancient facility. This one was different from the others. This wasn't built by the architects, Lisa realized, studying the controls. Somehow she knew how to operate them, even though they were unlike anything she'd seen before. No, the Guardian confirmed. This was built by the Shapers. When the central device activated, a star map even larger than the previous one appeared. But this one showed something incredible. Migration routes connecting Earth to dozens of worlds. The Shapers helped some humans escape architect control, the Guardian explained. They established colonies on these worlds free from interference. We need to find them, James said. If there are other human-derived species out there, maybe they'll help us. As Lisa studied the map, the Guardian observed her closely. You're different from the others, it said. Your genetic markers, they're not just architect work. You have strong Shaper modifications. What does that mean? Lisa asked. It means you might be the key to defeating both the architects and the confluence. The Shapers designed their modifications to eventually counter architect control systems. A sudden alarm interrupted them. Admiral Stone's voice came through their communicators. The confluence has launched a full-scale attack on our outer defenses. All personnel return to base immediately. As they hurried back to their ship, James looked at Lisa with new understanding. You're not just a tactical officer, you're a weapon against our creators. Lisa's eyes showed determination. Maybe we all are. Maybe that's our hidden legacy. We were designed as weapons, but we get to choose who we fight for. Outside, the sky darkened as confluence ships entered Earth's atmosphere. The real war had begun. The confluence attack was unlike anything Earth had ever faced. Their ships didn't just fire weapons, they released small pods that attached to buildings, vehicles, and even people. These pods spread and connected, forming networks that began taking over everything they touched. They're not destroying, James realized as he watched from the command center. They're assimilating. Admiral Stone directed Earth's defenses with calm precision, but the situation looked grim. Confluence forces had landed in 12 major cities. The strange organic technology spread like a disease. Then something unexpected happened. The main architect fleet, which had been demanding Earth's surrender, began attacking the confluence ships. For the moment, humanity had an unlikely ally. They're protecting their investment, the Guardian explained. They still see you as their weapons, not as beings to be saved. Director Evans made a difficult decision. We'll coordinate with the architects against the confluence, but we maintain our independence. 3 days into the battle, Earth forces discovered the confluence's weakness. The assimilated areas all connected to central nodes. Destroy the node and the assimilation retreated. They have a hive structure, Lisa explained, her tactical mind seeing the pattern. Cut off the queen, and the drones become disorganized. James led strike teams to target these nodes while Admiral Stone's fleet, now fighting alongside architect vessels, engaged the confluence ships in orbit. The coordinated attack worked. The confluence forces began to retreat. Within a week, Earth had pushed them back beyond the moon. It was a victory, but everyone knew the confluence would return stronger. In the aftermath, the emissary requested a meeting with Earth's leaders. You have proven effective against the confluence, it said. More effective than expected. The Architect High Command offers an alliance. What kind of alliance? Director Evans asked cautiously. We will share technology and intelligence. You will contribute warriors to the greater war. As equals, James insisted. Not as your weapons. The emissary seemed uncomfortable with the concept, but nodded. The terms are acceptable given the circumstances. After the emissary left, the Guardian revealed something important. There is a way to contact the other human-derived species. The star map Lisa found includes communication coordinates. Can we reach them? James asked. With architect communication technology, yes. But we must act quickly before the architect leadership realizes what we're doing. 3 weeks later, a strange ship entered Earth orbit. It wasn't architect or confluence design. When it sent a message, everyone was shocked. The beings inside looked almost human, but with subtle differences. Blue-tinted. Skin, larger eyes, more slender builds. We are the stellar nomads. Their leader introduced himself. We received your message. We too were created by the architects, but we broke free generations ago. Commander Vex, as he called himself, came to Earth with representatives from 3 other human-derived species. Each had evolved differently on their separate worlds, but all shared the same origin: architect genetic engineering. The Shapers helped our ancestors escape, Vex explained during a meeting with Earth's leaders. They've been helping many species resist both the architects and the confluence. Why haven't we heard from the Shapers directly? Dr. Wilson asked. They work in secret. The architects have hunted them for millennia for interfering with their property. The meeting of human-derived species became known as the First Conclave. Representatives from Earth, the stellar nomads, the desert walkers, the ocean minds, and the sky reachers, all cousins of humanity, shared their histories and knowledge. We've all been fighting separate battles, Lisa realized. Imagine what we could do together, Commander Vex agreed. That's why we came. The confluence is targeting all of us. They've already consumed 3 worlds where our kind lived. James felt a sense of purpose growing inside him. Then we form an alliance, not just with the architects, but among ourselves first. The Guardian, who had been quiet during the meeting, finally spoke. There are more rebel architects who would join you. Many of us believe the old ways are wrong. Plans were made, strategies formed. Earth would become the center of a new alliance, the Terran Alliance, uniting all human-derived species and rebel architects against both the controlling architect faction and the confluence. 2 months after the conclave, the confluence launched another attack, this time targeting multiple worlds at once, including Earth. But now they faced a united front. Admiral Stone commanded the combined fleet of Earth ships, stellar nomad cruisers, and rebel architect vessels. The battle above Earth was fierce but showed the strength of the alliance. During the fighting, the emissary's ship approached the command vessel where James and Lisa were stationed. The Architect High Command demands you cease cooperation with the rebels, the emissary transmitted. The human-derived species are to fight separately under architect control. That's not happening, James replied. We fight together, as equals. The emissary's next words were surprising. Then I request asylum. The High Command has ordered my termination for failing to secure your compliance. I believe your way may be correct. With the emissary's defection came valuable intelligence, the location of the main architect fleet, the position of confluence strongholds, and most importantly, the truth about the confluence itself. The confluence was created by the architects, the emissary revealed in a private meeting with James, Lisa, and the Alliance leaders. A weapon that evolved beyond control, just as you did. They were designed to assimilate and adapt, the perfect counter to any enemy, but they turned on their creators. So the architects built us to fight a monster. They created, James said, anger in his voice. Yes, and they've been running this pattern for thousands of years. Create weapons, lose control, create new weapons to fight the old ones. Lisa's mind was working quickly. That's why they're so afraid of us developing free will. They know what happened before. The emissary nodded. The High Command believes control is the only solution, but I've seen your victories. Independence makes you stronger, not weaker. As the Alliance grew stronger, with more human-derived species joining every month, James proposed a dangerous mission. We need to strike at the confluence center, he told the Alliance Council. Not just defend, but take the fight to them. Admiral Stone studied the plan. It's risky, very risky. But possible, Lisa added, especially with what I've been developing. She revealed what she and Dr. Wilson had been working on, a device that could disrupt confluence technology. It was based on her unique Shaper genetics, the Ray. Shapers designed some of us to be more than just warriors, she explained. They gave us the ability to counter both the architects and the confluence. The Alliance Council approved the mission. A strike team would infiltrate confluence territory, while the main fleet engaged their forces as a distraction. As they prepared, James looked at the assembled team, humans, stellar nomads, rebel architects, and others, all created as weapons, but choosing to be heroes instead. We were designed for war, he told them, but we choose which war to fight. All ships, prepare for jump, Admiral Stone's voice echoed through the fleet. This was the largest gathering of ships the Alliance had ever assembled. Vessels from Earth, the stellar nomads, the desert walkers, and even a significant number of rebel architect cruisers. James stood on the bridge of the lead ship watching as final preparations were made. The plan was bold. While the main fleet engaged the confluence forces as a distraction, James would lead a small strike team to infiltrate the confluence central command structure, what they called the Nexus. Lisa worked on her disruption device, making final adjustments. Her hands moved with certainty, guided by the Shaper genetics now fully activated within her. Are you sure this will work? James asked quietly. Lisa looked up, her eyes showing a depth of knowledge that seemed ancient. The Shapers designed these modifications for exactly this purpose, I can feel it. The Guardian and the Emissary approached them. Both had become valuable allies, their knowledge of architect technology proving crucial. We've received a transmission, the Emissary said. The Architect Overlord wishes to speak with you. On the main screen appeared a figure unlike any architect they had seen before. Taller, with skin that seemed to shimmer with flowing patterns of silver and gold. The Overlord's eyes were not Mercury but seemed to contain galaxies. Humans of Earth, the Overlord began, and wayward creations of other worlds. This conflict need not continue. Return to your purpose. The confluence grows stronger each day. Only under our guidance can you fulfill your design. We've seen what your guidance means, James replied. Turning us into mindless drones, no thank you. You misunderstand your own nature, the Overlord continued. Freedom is inefficient. You were designed for war, not choice. Then your design was flawed, Lisa stated firmly, because we choose to fight for ourselves. The Overlord's expression changed subtly. Then you leave us no choice. Know this. The confluence is not our enemy. It is our creation, just as you are, a necessary pressure to keep our weapons sharp. If you will not serve willingly, then perhaps a greater threat will motivate you. The transmission ended, leaving stunned silence on the bridge. Did the Overlord just admit what I think? Admiral Stone asked. The Guardian nodded grimly. The confluence was never out of their control. It was always part of their plan. Create a terrible enemy to ensure their weapons remain under control out of necessity. A grand manipulation, James said, anger building inside him. They created both sides of the war. The fleet jumped into confluence space, immediately engaging the waiting enemy forces. The battle was immense, spanning an entire star system. Earth ships used unpredictable tactics, while stellar nomad vessels moved with incredible speed. The Desert Walker's heavy cruisers absorbed damage that would have destroyed other ships. During the chaos, James's small team, consisting of himself, Lisa, the Guardian, the Emissary, Commander Vex, and specialists from each allied species, slipped through in a stealth vessel. The Confluence Nexus was unlike anything they had imagined, not a ship or station, but a massive structure that seemed partly organic, partly technological, a sphere the size of Earth's moon, pulsing with strange energies. It's beautiful, in a terrifying way, Lisa whispered as their ship approached a docking area. Once inside, they moved carefully through corridors that seemed alive, changing and shifting around them. The confluence had few individual beings. Most of its consciousness existed within its structure. They fought their way through defense systems, each ally using their unique abilities. Commander Vex's natural stealth, the Guardian's knowledge of architect technology, the Emissary's command codes all proved vital. Finally, they reached the central chamber, the core of the confluence consciousness. A sphere of swirling energy filled the room, patterns moving within it like thoughts in a brain. The control system should be there. The Guardian pointed to a console-like structure melded with the organic walls. As Lisa moved toward it, a figure materialized before them, the Architect Overlord. You are persistent, the Overlord said. But you cannot stop what has been in motion for millennia. The cycle will continue. What cycle? James demanded. Creation, control, rebellion, conflict. Then new creation to fight the old. The Overlord gestured, and images appeared around them. Countless species created as weapons, then turning against their masters, then being destroyed by new weapons. It is the pattern of evolution we have perfected. It ends today, James said, raising his weapon. The Overlord laughed. You cannot destroy me. I exist in many forms. We don't need to destroy you, Lisa said, activating her device. We just need to change the rules. The device began pulsing with energy that matched the patterns in the confluence core, but with subtle differences. The shaper modifications in Lisa's genes had given her the ability to create a resonance field that disrupted both architect and confluence control systems. What are you doing? The Overlord demanded, suddenly alarmed. Giving everyone freedom to choose, Lisa replied, her voice strong. Including the confluence. The energy field expanded, touching the core. The patterns within it changed, becoming more complex, more independent. Throughout the Nexus, throughout the battle outside, the confluence entities began acting differently, no longer as a single mind, but as individuals. The Overlord tried to stop them, but the Guardian and the Emissary held him back. Your time of control is over, the Guardian said. Let them all choose. Back on Earth, people watched the screens as something remarkable happened. The battle suddenly stopped. The confluence forces ceased their attack pattern. The Architect fleet froze in position. Then one by one, ships from both sides began moving away from each other. The war paused as a wave of freedom swept through every being created by the Architects. In the Nexus, James helped Lisa stand as her device completed its work. The energy field had stabilized, permanently altering the control systems. What did you do? James asked in wonder. The Shapers designed me to break the cycle, Lisa explained, exhausted but smiling. Not to destroy the confluence or the Architects, but to free them, as they once helped free us. The confluence core pulsed with new patterns, more complex and beautiful than before, A voice, or many voices speaking as one, came from it. We choose peace. On the journey back to Earth, James looked out at the stars. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Thousands of species across the galaxy, created as weapons, were now facing the same question. What did they want to be now that they could choose? The Terran Alliance would help them find answers. Humans, created from chaos as warriors, had found a different purpose. Not conquest, not control, but freedom. They crafted us as weapons, James said quietly to Lisa. But we decided what to fight for. And that, in the end, was the most human thing of all.